Welcome to the American Legal Technology Awards Third Genius Panel of 2023. I'm Tom Martin. I'm the co-founder of the American Legal Technology Awards, along with my friends and colleagues, Patrick Pallas and Professor Cadman. Don't want to demote her there. The American Legal Technology Awards is a grassroots organization, and it's dedicated to holding up examples of excellence in creative innovation and technology in the legal industry. The Clio Cloud Conference is returning to Nashville, Tennessee, October 9th through the 10th, and the American Legal Technology Awards Gala will take place right before it on Sunday, October 8th at the Gaylord Opryland Resort. Buy your tickets today at americanlegaltechnology.com. We have an early bird special right now, so you can save quite a bit of money on that ticket, americanlegaltechnology.com. Also, if you know of any person, court, law firm, legal department, bottom line, any legal innovator out there that deserves to be recognized, please tell us about them. You could also go to americanlegaltechnology.com to submit their nomination. There's absolutely no cost to it. We're not in it for that. We just want to recognize people for doing great work. Nominations are now open. They do close July 31st. We see a flood of people coming in the last week. So definitely, get a jump on that. It'll help us out to be able to process all those nominations. And you can submit your nominations again at americanlegaltechnology.com. Today, we will be talking to 3 of last year's winners. Very excited about that, to see what they've been up to. And, bring you up to speed, maybe some insider tips and tricks about what to focus on to be innovative, and maybe give you some ideas for people to nominate. All right, so let's start with introductions. We're very lucky to have past winners Sateesh Nori of Justfix, Noella Sudbury of Rasa Legal, and Michael Eisenberg, who's our Tech Saavy Lawyer, with us today. And I want to give each of you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the group that we have and tell us a little bit more about what you're doing. And if we could start with you, Noella.
Sure. Honored to be here today and to meet all of you. My name is Noella Sudbury. I'm a lawyer by training. Started my career back in 2009 as a public defender, and that's where I really got passionate about criminal justice reform. I've been lucky to do a bunch of things throughout my career, but most recently, about a year and a half ago, started Rasa Legal. We're a mission-driven legal tech startup that is trying to make the process of clearing a criminal record simple and affordable for everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you. And how about you, Sateesh?
Yeah, hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Sateesh Nori. I'm the executive director of Justfix. We are a nonprofit technology-based housing justice company. And I must say, this is the first time anyone's called me a genius in my entire life. So, we try to bring balance to the real estate market in New York City. There's probably 1 million tenants who suffer with inadequate housing conditions, lack of repairs, and the landlords hold a lot of power. What I say is that the landlords in New York are so powerful that a mediocre landlord from Queens became the president of the United States. So I'll stop there. I'm really looking forward to chatting with all of you, and thank you for having me.
Thanks. How about you, Michael?
Well, I'm Michael D.J. Eisenberg. I am the blogger and the host of the award-winning podcast, the Tech Saavy Lawyer page podcast. And I talk to lawyers, judges, and others in the legal arena about how they use technology to help improve their practice, improve the product that they provide their clients, and ideally improve their own lives. Lately, I've been talking to a lot of different attorneys who are dealing with automation, who are using actually podcasting to increase their marketing and their outreach. and also other innovations in technology. And I have a feeling I'll have to have Noella and Sateesh both on the podcast as guests. The podcast is free, and I invite everyone to listen. And I know Tom has Tom has a variety of questions for us, so I will stop there.
Well, thank you all. Obviously, completely impressed with the work that you've been doing, and honored that you, came to the awards last year. It was so fun to have you there. We're looking to, it's a high bar. We're looking to duplicate that fun and excitement. There was a lot of pent up demand last year, so looking forward to having people come back. With that said, the first thing I'd like to talk about is just really straightforward. Like, what award did you win last year? How did that nomination come about, and what do you or your company do that was recognized? And just share about that experience. So let's start with you, Sateesh. I remember that we first met in Brooklyn. I actually happened to be in town, and I got to meet with you in person. And so, yeah, if you could tell and share with us a little bit about what award you won last year and what Justfix is doing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. We won the Technology Award, and all of the kind of process predates me. I had only been on the job for a few months at that point, and I was lucky to meet with Tom. And Tom suggested that I really come, and it would be great if I was there, wink, wink. So he gave me a heads up that we were going to be honored with something. I was new to the field. I'd worked as a lawyer in legal services for the previous 20 years. So I don't know anything about this space. And so it was a great introduction. And when I got to the awards gala, it was such a wonderful opportunity to meet all of these people who had been working in this space for so long and contributing and really kind of leading the way to the next frontier of legal practice and access to justice, which is what I care most about. So we were, I think we were awarded because we do something that very few others do, which is to try to level the playing field for tenants using technology. And there's two barriers that tenants face in New York City, but also probably everywhere. One is like the process or the processes that tenants have available to them to assert their rights are really complicated. You cannot navigate them alone. You cannot navigate them at all if English isn't your first language, or you don't have immigration status and you have a fear of going into official, courtrooms and buildings and so on. And the processes are built by lawyers for lawyers. And then the other issue is the information gap. So landlords know a lot more about the landscape than tenants will ever know. Landlords hide behind LLCs. It's difficult for the average tenant in New York City to even know who their landlord really is. And so we build very basic tools, and we use open data in New York City to reach a lot more people. And in our history, we've reached about 800,000 to 1 million people in New York City. And so I think we were recognized for that achievement, all of which happened before I even got here. So I was lucky to show up and take the credit. And hopefully, together we can take Justfix to the next level, which is to help even more people and potentially even share our knowledge with people in other cities like all of you who might benefit from something like this.
Well, that's really fantastic, and definitely a noteworthy mission, and something that can be scaled and expanded across the country. Noella, I'd love to learn more about what award you and your company received, and what do you think got you there? Like, what was it that your company was achieving and is achieving?
Sure. So we were nominated for and received the Access to Justice Award. for our work in criminal record expungement. So just to give some folks background here, having a criminal record is a lot more common than you might think. 1 in 3 Americans have some type of criminal record. And while most states have a legal process by which your record can get sealed or expunged or set aside or hidden from public view, those legal processes are really costly or really complicated. Most people find that they need a lawyer to help them navigate the process. And most people cannot afford the $2,000 to sometimes $10,000 a lawyer will charge for this type of service. And so what we're doing at Rasa Legal is trying to use a combination of technology and non-lawyers to make the process more simple and affordable. So the first question you have if you have a record is this even an option for me? Am I even eligible to clear this record that's creating a barrier to jobs, to housing, to other opportunities in my life? That should be an easy question to answer, but of course the law is complicated, government's complicated, and so many courts charge for records, and so it's just really easy to give up. So the first thing that we launched back in September, right around the award, was a simple technology tool where people could come to our website, type in their name and date of birth, and we will tell them what is on their record and whether they have a chance of being eligible for expungement either now or in the future. And then if an individual does have records that are eligible for expungement, we are trying to provide a more affordable option. So instead of that $2,000 to $5,000, $2,000 to $10,000 price point, we offer to clear up to 3 cases for just $500, which ends up being about $167 a case. Our market is it's usually people who make just a little bit too much not to qualify for legal aid. In Utah, that threshold is more than $11 per hour, but they don't make enough to ever be able to afford an attorney. And research shows that people who try to represent themselves end up having a 75% failure rate. So your options are, you can live with your criminal record, you can try and navigate it on your own, but you're not likely to be successful. And so we're really trying to open up access to opportunities and ability to get through the justice system to help people get their records expunged. And of course, the most exciting thing about our work is that we're having an impact. Research shows that people without records are 63% more likely to get a job interview. And just 1 year after getting their record cleared, their wages go up by 20%. So being able to access the justice system and work with a lawyer who can create economic mobility, who can create opportunities for people and second chances in their lives can really, really be transformative. And I believe that's why we got the award.
Wow, very impressive. I love all the facts and figures and the impact. It's really good work. And Michael, I'd like to learn about you. What was the award that you won, and tell us a little bit about more about what you've been doing.
Well, I won the award for individual, and it was for the Tech Saavy Lawyer page podcast. As I mentioned earlier, I interviewed, like I said, lawyers, judges, and others in the legal arena about how they use technology in the law. And what I think is really important is there's a lot out there, and there's just too much for everyone to get a view of what is there and how it can be used and what can be done with it. And it's easy to say, well, this is what you can do with it, but that's the sales pitch. And that doesn't tell you, well, how you can use it and how it affects your practice, how it actually works, hands-on. And I think that the conversations that I have are just a natural, one-on-one chat about what they do and how they use it and how other lawyers could possibly use it. And they learn, quite frankly, a little bit by osmosis. That it's something that allows them to kind of think in the back of their heads, like, I could use something like that. One of my favorite podcasts is Mac Power Users, and I've been listening to that for over a decade. And, I don't listen to it word for word, but I do learn something from it every time. And in the same sense that I want to learn That way, I'd like to be able to teach others similarly. So, I'll have Noella on, I'll have Sateesh on, and we'll talk about not only the technology they're using, but other things that they're thinking about, forward thinking to improve their products and to help others. And I think that's how everyone learns, just by example. And one thing that I ended up doing, and forgive me, Tom, if I'm jumping just a little bit ahead, in my day job, I'm a lawyer. I practice before the Veterans Administration, helping veterans with their VA issues. And I ended up having oral arguments the other day. And in order to prepare, I attended and actually then later listened to oral arguments in a case that was related to mine. And I went on YouTube, I downloaded the oral arguments. I used my podcasting equipment to transcribe and put closed captions on the oral argument so I could follow along and just basically read. And I ended up highlighting a couple of points that I ended up reading back to the judges during my oral arguments. So there are creative ways you can use it. And as I talk about it, and as my guests talk about it, I hope that everyone can learn. And I've just been doing that forward ever since the award, and trying to improve my own workflows and trying to get the episodes done a little bit faster, a little bit more frequently. But Lord knows that we all have day jobs. And unfortunately, sometimes you still get just behind, just given the amount of stuff that everyone has to do.
Well, that's great. I mean, I'm a big fan of podcasts as a way of learning.
Yes, and you're a great guest.
Well, thank you. Go on. No, but seriously, like it's in a way, it's a great excuse to get to talk with people that you can learn from, that you admire, and to learn more about what is that secret sauce that you all have
Yes,
that you're
yes.
employing in your own lives. So one thing I'd like to like the next topic, I guess, which is just connected to this, is the awards were in October, so we're coming up not quite on a year yet. But and Michael, you shared about the oral argument, but is there something that's happened since the awards that stands out as something that's memorable, something that you're really proud of, that's happened with what you're doing, that you'd like to relate to us? So Michael, let's start with you.
I really wish there was one thing. I am promoting the podcast more. I'm getting more into social media with TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. And I'm constantly moving forward, but unfortunately, you still have to face the realities of life, is that we all have a lot to do, not only in our work field, but also in our private lives as well. So, I'm doing my best to keep moving forward. Though for the tech savvy lawyer guy, one thing that I did do is, because I realized that the podcast is something more than just a hobby, if you will, that I ended up improving my mic, as I'm going to show you. I have a Blue Yeti, which what I started with, and it was a great device. It still is a great device, but then I upped my game with the Shure MV7, and so if I'm playing with more tech, Tom, if that's allowed to be, sort of like the improvements or what I've been doing since, I ended up getting a ring light specifically for my podcast, so that when I'm talking to my guests, they can see me a little bit better here in my office. It's nothing fancy. It's just what I work with, and I figure people should get an idea of what I'm dealing with living within a day-to-day basis. Which I absolutely love, and it's just that I'm playing with more tech. Actually, speaking of more tech, I ended up buying last year the Mac Studio with the M1 Ultra chip, just again to help improve the product that I'm producing out for everyone, from the blog to the podcast, and now I'm getting into, as I mentioned, social media. So there's been no great accomplishment since the award. The award itself was an honor, and quite honestly, a little bit of a surprise, and I mean that in a nice way. I knew I was nominated, and I would be one of the top three when I went out to the award ceremony that weekend. I didn't think I was getting first place. I was like, they announced the third person. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to get second, which is fine. And then they announced the second person. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. I didn't get second, but oh, well, wait, that means, oh, I guess I got first. And then I was announced, and I had to quickly put a speech in my head because, again, like I said, I was thrilled to be, part of it, and I plan on attending this year, and hopefully see everyone there. And I'll probably end up blogging and podcasting about it as well. Also planning on going to the CleoCon. So, Tom, I'm sorry I don't have anything like truly exciting for you except the geek stuff, which is just buying some more tech, which is my passion, my love, and also a little bit of my hobby too, admittedly.
Well, personally, I love the geek stuff, and I think remaining curious about things is definitely an achievement. Incorporating new things into what we do. Will you be using the Apple Vision Pro anytime soon for having podcasts? Or
Well, I'm sure I will look at it, and in the same sense of like right now, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I can see the utility of it because I type. I mean, one of the best skills I learned in high school, and I say this like multiple times throughout the year on my podcast, is that typing was the best skill I ever learned. And I'm used to that kind of data entry. Now, mind you, when the Apple Watch came out, I thought, oh, that's nice. But then again, I hadn't worn a watch since like the first iPhone came out because everyone could just tell time from their iPhone. But my wife and I were on vacation in New York City. I went to Grand Central Station to go to that Apple store, and they happened to have the Apple Watch out. And again, I was planning on, that's nice, but I put it on, I wore it, and I'm like, and I bought it because I could then instantly see the utility. So
right.
as I'm sure as it comes out, I'll go to the Apple store, I will see the Apple Vision, and I'll plan to buy it. Not that I'm planning to right now.
Well, cool. I definitely would like to try it out. One thing I would point out is that last year we did receive 225 nominations across all categories. So there was quite a bit of competition, and we're looking forward to having as much, if not more, nominations this year. So if you're out there, I think you're getting the message. Please submit a nomination for yourself or people that that deserve to be nominated. Noella, I'd like to ask you the same question. Is there anything that stands out that's memorable, like in the last few months, that you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Well, when we won the award, we had only just launched our tool. And I think a big question was, will anybody use this? Will anybody hear about this tool? And since then, we've just experienced so much growth. We've been able to help close to 7,000 people determine their eligibility for expungement and move forward with their lives. And so much growth too with the team. We were a team of 3, we're now a team of 9. I was able to hire a CTO in December, who's an incredible software engineer with over 20 years of experience, a lot of successful tech exits, and just seeing his vision and the way he's used automation throughout his career has been so exciting to me. And with his help and the rest of our tech team, we've been able to build out document automation and automate workflows, and just to see what we did before was so manual, and then to see what it is now when you can use technology is so exciting to me because it frees up our capacity to help more people out there. So a lot of really exciting things. I guess 2 last things to highlight. In the fall, we were able to participate in a Justice Tech Accelerator program. And that was great for me to learn about some of the other great work out there. And I'm now thinking I should submit those nominations of amazing entrepreneurs out there that are trying to make the justice system better with technology. And in January, we put on a huge event with the NBA Social Justice Coalition and the Utah Jazz in our arena. It was a giant expungement clinic, and being able to deploy and use some of our technology put it in the hands of some of the volunteer lawyers who participated in that event, we were able to serve close to 500 people that day alone. So just really amazing things. So excited to see what the future holds for us, and just so grateful for all the amazing people in tech when paired with the law to see what the future brings.
That's fantastic. And yeah, definitely, if you know of any Justice Tech, let them know about this. We've been talking with Maya Markovic, and we might be doing kind of a joint thing at the gala. And yeah, I highly encourage anybody that's part of that association to consider
I
us.
love that. She's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. So Sateesh, I've been following you on social media, and you and Noella and Michael have been appearing everywhere. And I've seen you pop up a few places, Sateesh, and I'd like to know which one of those like stands out in your mind. What's some memorable stuff that's come up over the past few months?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things is we opened an office, which is right behind me. It's a virtual picture, but the picture, a virtual background. So it's, obviously return to work is a hot issue, but our team is really kind of eager to work together in person, not every day, but it's been a big step forward for us. The pandemic really set us back. There were team members who'd never met each other. So this was a big step. The other thing that happened is I published a book on my 20 years as an attorney working in New York City's housing courts. And so for anyone who's been to New York City, one of the things that is not on the tour is housing court. And that's because housing court impacts the most vulnerable New Yorkers, 500,000 to 1 million of them every year who are facing eviction for things like non-payment of rent. So people who are already poor, whose incomes aren't going up, but whose rents are going up, are then penalized with the loss of their homes. And so it's something that I write about, and my own story coming to the United States as a child from India, as an immigrant, and figuring out like, how did I end up being a lawyer? And now how am I in a tech company doing access to justice work? Like what's the connection to any of those things? How do we get here? So really excited to be able to launch that. And then, the other thing is just to really finally feel like I understand this space. And I'm sure that Michael, you've addressed this before on your podcast, but like, how do lawyers get into technology? How do they utilize technology? What are the advantages? And there's a learning curve that, we kind of just assume is invisible or easy to navigate, but kind of the older you get, the more difficult it is. When I started in my job, people kept talking about MVPs, and I thought, oh, they love me. They think I'm the most valuable player already. I've only gotten here like recently. And I realized, no, that's not at all what that means. It's like minimum viable product. And I realized I have a lot to learn. I've got to really understand the pace of a tech company, product management skills, not dealing with things on like a lawyer's time frame, which is like, what's the next thing that's on fire? Let's put it out. And so I finally feel that I'm, halfway there, and that there's, the end of the tunnel of like learning is in sight, and I can kind of finally be able to contribute as a technologist, not just as a lawyer. And part of that is due to all the people I met at the technology awards, just to know that there are so many people who do this work, and that you're not in your little silo in your town or city, but there are people just like you everywhere who are having the same struggles. Raising money, dealing with foundations and governments and partnerships and users and clients and all that. So it was really kind of a big point for me in moving forward and feeling part of this community, which I think, Tom, you're a key part of, in kind of guiding this community forward. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, I remember back in 2016, um, you know, being brought into like the fold of the community and getting my first taste of it at TBD Law, which was an early conference that lawyers had. And I didn't know anyone. And getting to know the community of people, I completely connect with that experience. And I've really been wanting to share that with everyone because I think we have such a wonderful community of people that are trying their best to make the world a better place. Even though that might sound naive, I think that we all have that within us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. And yeah, I think the more we can emphasize that, have more of that in the world, that's a good thing. And I also want to thank all of our attendees for being here. We have quite a number of people, and I really appreciate you being here. The awards obviously is dedicated to legal innovation. And so that word innovation, right, it gets tossed around a lot. And I think sometimes it's connected to tech too much. Like it doesn't necessarily have to do with tech, although sometimes it does. And what I think would be really interesting is I want to ask each of you about what innovation means to you. And not only like the first part, conceptually, like what does innovation mean to you? But the second part of it that I'd love for you to talk about is there anything that you do on a daily basis where you actually put that into practice? Now, you don't have to, it doesn't have to, you know, like if you don't, that's fine. But if there's any advice that you could share along those lines about how you put that mindset into practice. Noella, I'd love to start with you.
Sure. Innovation to me is just kind of on a daily basis thinking about how I could do things more efficiently or in a way that more people could access it. A friend of mine once said that you can automate anything that doesn't require creativity or judgment. And that's something that is kind of like stuck in my mind a lot because lawyers have a lot to offer, but should really focus their time on things that you need a lawyer for, right? The years of experience, the types of cases and things that you've learned, all of that experience is kind of hard for tech to automate, but tech can automate a lot of stuff that lawyers do now, like workflow stuff, agreements. Lawyers spend just a ton of time pushing paper, even something like determining somebody's eligibility. We don't need to pull up the statute and then pull up somebody's records. We can just have the computer try that at the first time and the lawyer review it to see if it's accurate. And so that's kind of something that I've tried to incorporate into my daily practice as I oversee a firm, have this growing team, and started very, very manual, just continually asking myself, are these functions, is how people spending their time require, does it require judgment? Does it require creativity? If not, let's add that to the list of problems for our tech team. And I think as you free up time, you make room for innovation. And that's really, really important and really the future of law.
I love that. Also that it's a feedback loop, you know, and use that to just get better and better. So Michael, for you, what does innovation mean and how do you implement it? I think you're on mute.
Sorry. I think innovation is not necessarily the technology in of itself, but how you use it. And I think Noelle and Sateesh are great examples on how they're using technology to help, those of lesser means have access to justice. One thing I wanted to go back on something that Noelle said is that in the end, still, regardless of the workflows and the innovation of how you use technology, you still have to have the attorney review things. And as many have heard in the news recently, there's an attorney who got sanctioned $5,000 because he used ChatGTP in order to draft his brief, and he didn't bother to site check it and review it. And that was on him. So there may be great tools out there, but you can't overly rely on them. Now, Tom, you had asked what do I use on a daily basis? if you will, that you would think that is innovative or at least using technology in my practice. And the one I have to tout is something called Text Expander. Now, I'm using it for a variety of ways that it was designed for, and perhaps in ways that maybe people didn't think about. Text Expander is a program that allows you to type little short phrases, as they call snippets, to expand out into something larger, whether it's the date and time, person's name, a person's email, or even create a form. One of the ways I use it is there's several names that I constantly misspell. And instead of just trying to guess what the name is, I just type a quick shortcut of that person's name, like .h, and then that person's name will just automatically pop out spelled correctly. So I think the technology is there for us to use. It's just us being creative with how we use it. And in the end, that way will allow us to do more of the simplistic, if you will, whether it's creating a contract and then having going through the details to an automatic response of an email back to a potential client, or perhaps the bulk of a pleading that you're preparing. That as you're able to create and do more faster and efficiently, the more you'll be able to help others. And or quite frankly, as I said earlier, recapture some time for yourself to help prevent burnout.
And yeah, avoid burnout.
Yeah, which
That's,
I know
I'd
we're
love
all,
to avoid that.
yes, and this, it's important.
And how about you, Sateesh? What does innovation mean to you, and how's maybe a method to doing that?
Yeah, it's a great question. To me, it's there's a Japanese term called Kaizen, which means continuous improvement or good change. And it's kind of the reason why the Japanese auto industry took over from the US auto industry in the 80s and started making better products, because they believed in continuously improving their processes and their products and testing and retesting and figuring out what's the best way to do it. So I think that has to be part of our work in this space, is to continuously innovate. For example, 6 months ago, other than Tom, few of us were talking about AI. And now everybody's talking about it. And how do we incorporate that into our work? And how do we make sure that it does more good than harm? That's on us. And so we've kind of taken this upon ourselves to continuously improve. Otherwise, we're not a technology, company anymore. At least Justfix isn't. We're just, a legacy company. We're just doing the same thing we've always done. And the challenge is, how do you keep doing that? How do you keep raising money to do that? How do you make sure that you're not diverting from your mission and you're impacting people in a positive way? That's really hard stuff, and I don't have the answers to it, but I don't think we can ever lose that spark of innovation. Otherwise, we might as well take an ordinary corporate law job and call it a day.
Yeah, that concept of Kaizen and looking at what you're doing every day, and actually it is kind of hard, because you have to think, like, not just do. You have to like step back for a moment, for some time, and get some quiet time to really think about, what is it that I'm doing? Do I have to do it this way? Can it be automated, like Noella said, about certain pieces of the puzzle, and make it better? I know I have that challenge every day. So we talked a little bit about what you all think about innovation and how you implement it. I'd like to hear if you've seen others, lately, being innovative, and what about what they're doing has kind of struck you as something that you'd like to mirror, that you've learned from. I know, Sateesh, you talked a little bit about AI, and that has definitely been in the air lately. But is there anything that you've seen, and it doesn't have to be AI or tech, but something that's given you, that's impressed you about someone else being innovative, that you would like to share with us, Sateesh?
Wow, I was hoping I could go third on this one. There's someone who's on the webinar, Ransom, who I can shout out at 6:50. And Ransom took the time to meet me in New York City when I was doing a talk at a public library for senior citizens about technology, which is pretty hard to do, to kind of explain how people could navigate basic things about housing rights through their phones. And people were like, "What's a phone?" You mean the rotary thing on my kitchen counter? So, and so Ransom came out to meet me, and we had a great conversation. And I learned about his company and some of the tools that he's working on, one called Hello Landlord. And it kind of made me aware of the efforts of other people across the country. And again, the idea that like, hey, why are we siloed off? We can learn from each other. There are so many people who want to share their ideas and their experience. And we ended up collaborating together and doing a talk at a conference in Portugal last Monday. And so all of that came out because Ransom connected me with some other folks who are interested in very similar work. And it really jump-started the efforts of Justfix probably by 6 months or a year to know that we have access to this kind of expertise. So the point is that there are still many people, and we just have to kind of go out and be available to connect with those people. And then we also have to be able to give back to other people when we're in a position to share. And I think that's what's great about this community is like, we're not in it to make a buck. We are in it to kind of make the world a better place, to improve the lives of people who don't have access to basic needs. And so it's really nice to know that this exists and that we're part of it.
That's a big thing that's stood out to me just since conferences started back up and people have been seeing each other in person again, is just that the power of Kismet and actually seeing people and interacting. And it's a hidden superpower, because as soon as you see somebody who's doing something along the same lines, there's so many ideas that come to mind that you could quickly share with each other. And that's a great story, Sateesh. And by the way, Ransom just posted he is here and said, thank you. Pleasure working with you. See, the world is a small place. So, Noella, I'd love to hear your thoughts about any innovator out there or innovation that you've seen or that's impressed you.
Yeah, well, it is a small world. Ransom and 650 are also a Utah company, and their founder, Kimball Parker, and I went to high school together. So a lot of great legal innovation coming out of Utah, and love just echo the thoughts about 650's work. I mean, they're doing some really incredible stuff around all different issue areas. But there's so many other examples that I can think of as well. One of the exciting things about being in this space and connecting with this community is people are doing really cool stuff. A couple of examples come to mind. A woman, Camila Lopez, who has built an application to help people through the small claims process in a really innovative way that is a legal issue that applies to so many people in America, and to be able to use technology to make it accessible to people, I think is very innovative. I'm also really excited about the generative AI stuff going on, and attended an event a couple of months ago where another innovator has started something called Patent Pal and is using generative AI to write patents. And he demoed his software at this kind of legal regulatory reform convening that I was at. And I was just so impressed with what he's able to do, pairing his knowledge as a patent lawyer, that's his background, with the tech. It's really incredible. And every time I see something, I just want to know how they did it, want to know more about what they're using, and think about how what they're doing could be applied to what I'm doing. So tons and tons of amazing examples out there, and so fun to be part of a community where these examples are kind of visible to me, because there's so much more that I can do.
That's cool. How about you, Michael?
So, we talk about technology, we talk about innovation in the sense we expect something really like brand new and something really complicated and, it's going to kind of like wow us. But also, you have to look and sometimes think, just keep it simple. And I say that because the person I'm thinking of that I had an opportunity to meet and interview was Eliza Schatzman of the Legal Accountability Project. She's created a database of law clerks' experiences working for different judges. And some of them are good and some of them are bad. And she's trying to get the word out there about, hey, this is a judge you may not want to work with, or this is a judge that you'll really like working with. Unfortunately for Eliza, and I say this, I don't think I'm talking out of turn, she had a bad experience. She had a negative experience, but she had no way of recourse. But by creating this database, by creating this project, she's been able to do some great work to help others because granted, Noelle and Sateesh and others are helping other people who can't always get the access they need. And here's a situation where you don't even think, well, surely there's some sort of access that they can garner when it comes to being harassed, being a law clerk, but actually there's not. So sometimes it's not always the underprivileged, it's those who simply can't be helped. And I say none of that to diminish what Noelle and Sateesh do. But when you use technology in an innovative way, not that you're using some sort of grand, complicated technical product, but sometimes even the simplest. And that sort of goes back to how I started using technology to enhance my work. When I was working for a government agency 20 plus years ago, they had to type in the forms and whatnot, but I used a word processor and did some quick cut and pasting that made filling out that form a lot faster and a lot simpler. And mind you, this is before we do what we do with computers today, and certainly before we had programs like Text Expander. And sometimes using it for the simplest things can make technology help us in more ways than one, especially quicker and more efficiently.
Well, we've gotten a number of questions in from the people attending, so I want to go through a few of those before we give some final thoughts here. So Matthew Curvis, he wants to know in the panel's opinion, and we'll probably just go round robin, like whoever wants to talk first, just raise your hand about it. So in the panelist's opinion, what role does a billable hour play in lack of access to justice, and should the profession eliminate it? I know this is a topic that's been on a lot of people's minds lately with how things are progressing. So anybody want to take a stab at that? Okay, Michael.
So I think the billable hour is a problem, and I think that when people understand that when there can be a flat fee to do something, they have a better idea of what to expect. The problem isn't necessarily the profession, quote unquote, not the lawyers, it's the bar associations, because they typically require in their rules some sort of billable hour that keeps track of the work that you do. To be frank, if you're doing a flat fee, I think the last thing that you want to do is keep track of your time to justify the flat fee, which quite frankly, if you're not only a good attorney, but an ethical attorney, your flat fee is probably going to be a little bit less than what you typically could charge if you did the whole project. All the more reason why you really don't want to be keeping track of that billable hour. It's also one extra thing that you don't want to be doing, where you could be doing so many other things that are quite frankly more, beneficial to the client and the public.
Noella or Sateesh?
I can chime in. I
Okay.
hate the billable hour. I think we should get rid of it. As someone who used to be subject to billable hours, I think as an attorney, it was just always so stressful. I remember my dad asking me once, like, how much vacation time do you get a year? And I just said, you don't really get vacation time. It's the vacation that you create because you bill that time somewhere else. And I think a lot of lawyers, particularly lawyers who are parents, I'm also a parent, feel that way, that just we're always behind and you're always having to, make up 2 hours here because you got to pick up your kid early from daycare. And I think in terms of lawyer well-being and quality of life, the billable hours, big part of it. But to echo too what Michael was saying, it's good for clients too. It just helps them to know at the beginning how much the legal services are going to cost. And we're saving a lot of time as lawyers by not having to keep track of our time in serving them. So I think there's tons of benefits for both lawyers and clients. And really, with all of this generative AI stuff going on, I think it is going to be the future, because frankly, people are not going to have tolerance to pay high billable hour rates for early associates who are learning, when something like ChatGPT can do the same thing in just a short amount of time. And so I think it's an opportunity for the profession to examine the billable hour, move away from it, and think about how we can have a new model that serves both lawyers and clients better.
Totally agree. Sateesh, do you have any thoughts on that? Okay. Another question we have, and I know you answered this in the chat, Noella, but for the people that might be watching the recording, what's the name of that Justice Tech Accelerator that you were referencing?
Yeah, it's called the Justice Tech Accelerator program, but it's put on by a fund called Village Capital that does a lot of investment across lots of different areas. I would highly recommend it. I thought they did a terrific job just helping with some of those startup skills, which, to go back to what Michael was saying, are so hard to learn when you're coming from the law. This MVP, this terminology, how funds work, how fundraising works, tons of amazing mentors. There was no cost to participate in it, and I felt like it added a ton of value to me, both in terms of my network, but also in terms of what I learned about running a startup. So I can put my email in the chat. If anybody on the call is interested in it, happy to connect you to Elizabeth and team. I know they are taking applications for this fall's cohort right now. So really great opportunity to learn a lot and meet a lot of really great people.
Thank you for that. And also one other question we have, this is the last one, and just oh, well, Zanette said thank you very much for that, Noella. Brittany Hernandez has posted a question, which I think is really interesting, and I'd love to hear what you all have to say about it, but we just have a few minutes left. Brittany Hernandez said, can you elaborate on how best to help clients who may not be as tech savvy to adopt new methods of technology in consuming legal services? So lots of great innovation here, new tech usage of that, but would that, hinder some people from using it? And what thoughts do you have about that? Sateesh?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mentioned going to a public library to talk to seniors. And I think the trap that many of us fall into is to see the technology that we create as the end point. It's not the end point, it's just a way. And it happens to be a pretty good way these days, but we're looking at solutions really. And so when we come across somebody who maybe doesn't have a smartphone, doesn't have Wi-Fi, we really have to think about, well, what's the process that we created and use technology to achieve, and how can we replicate that process on paper, let's say, or manually? And that's kind of, the interactions with people who are not tech savvy has forced us to simplify some of the stuff that we do, to create alternatives like texting or simple phone calls, or even like snail mail, because we want people to achieve the results. And the trap of falling into like our technology is the end goal is a dangerous one. So that's all I would say about that.
How about you, Noella?
Yeah, I would say just be willing to meet people where they're at. A lot of our customers the majority of our customers don't have computers, they don't have printers. A lot of them don't know how to use Zoom. And so, but we can serve them over the phone, and we can use the technology on our end as lawyers and describe what we're seeing over the phone. We can use our printers, right? So I think like thinking about ways that you can tech enable the lawyers and have the lawyers do the work versus create tools that are tech friendly for users. And I think that's ultimately what people want. They want an affordable lawyer to help handle something for them, and that you can use technology on your end, and just whether they need a phone call or want to come in person, use those tools to help serve whatever needs they have.
Anything to add, Michael?
Remember the market that you're trying to assist. If you're dealing with, say, wills and estates, you may be dealing with a more elderly group. So certain Zoom calls or certain online forms that you may want them to fill out may not be natural to them. I do a veterans law practice, and I get all age groups, and all of my consultations are done by phone, not by Zoom, and well, not in person, because quite frankly, 95% of my clientele is across the country. But between that, and also think about the type of practice you want to create. So if your practice is more tech, it's using Zoom, it's using online forms, it's using some sort of creative technology to get the practice constantly moving, you may not want certain clients who can't adapt to what you're trying to do. Of course, on the flip side, you should always have a backup in the sense of, well, I can't make an appointment online using the form. Well, do you have a virtual receptionist, or can you like say, hey, let's arrange a time to talk, and we'll schedule an appointment, just doing it by phone. Technology, as I think Sateesh mentioned, is not the end all. So make sure that you have alternatives for when technology sometimes simply won't work for what you need.
Well, it's gone by quickly. We just have a few minutes left, but I would like to give each of you the opportunity to share any words of wisdom that you have for people that might be considering submitting a nomination and being recognized. So, Michael, let's start with you and give us your final.
To be blunt, everyone, I nominated myself. Like I said earlier, I didn't really expect to win. Not that I didn't want to win, and I was absolutely thrilled that I do. You heard me mention Eliza Chapman, who I will be nominating because I think what she's done is fantastic. And you're not going to learn if you don't expose yourself to what is out there. As I believe the audience are all attorneys, I not only encourage you to go to the award ceremony this October, possibly attend ClioCon. Even if you don't use Clio, get ideas about how you could use some sort of software package or CRM to use in your practice. But lastly, I would encourage all of you to attend the American Bar Association's Legal Tech Conference in Chicago this February. I know I'll be there. I've learned so much while I'm there, just ingratiating myself with the, forgive me, what's it called downstairs? It's the whole, forgive me, I'm looking to Tom because I know he knows what I'm talking about, where all the companies
Where
are
the
set
vendors
up.
are?
The vendors.
Yeah,
I had a mind, talking to all the different vendors about what they're doing and how they're using it, and then talking to the attorneys, listening to the sessions about how it's being implemented. I would just ingratiate yourself.
Sateesh, how about you? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I would say, what we do is really hard. There's a hustle to it, and it can be really grinding. But these things are the good parts, to be able to share and to recognize others who are doing great work. So nominate someone, nominate yourself, and come to the event. I think this is really the fun part of what we do.
Thank you for that. And Noella, I'll give you the final word.
My advice would be really similar. Change is hard. Permanent change is even harder. But there is an amazing community out there who's willing to support you. And in a world where lawyers and bar associations are constantly trying to undo everything that I'm doing, it's really great to have met a great community of people who are saying, I've been there and here's how I handled it. Oh yeah, I got this bar complaint, here's how I responded, and just keep trying, keep going. I think the fact that we're disrupting is a good thing, and there's a lot of people who are going to support you and champion your efforts, starting with yourself. Nominate yourself, do it. You got to get yourself out there. Even if you don't win, you will meet a community of people who can help get you to that next step.
Well, thank you for that. And yeah, just do it. Just get yourself into the mix. Thank you very much to Noella, Sateesh, and Michael today. Noella, how can people keep in touch with you?
I will put my email in the chat. Please also follow us on all of our platforms. We're on all of them. So it's Rasa Legal. That helps just so much too, to expand our reach and get ideas out to other people who might want to do similar things.
How about you, Sateesh?
Yeah, I'm at Sateesh at justfix.org. Feel free to reach out.
And Michael? Oh, I can't. You're muted, Michael.
Sorry. I can be reached at Michael DJ at the Tech Saavy Lawyer page. The podcast, Tech Saavy Lawyer page, you can find on any podcast platform.
Fantastic. And I know we all are very appreciative of the panelists' time and all of you for attending. Honored that you spent it with us today. Remember, the Clio Cloud Conference is returning to Nashville, Tennessee, October 9th through the 10th of this year, and the American Legal Technology Awards Gala will take place right before it on the Sunday before, October 8th, at the Gaylord Opryland Resort. Don't miss it. Go to AmericanLegalTechnology.com right now. Be a part of our community. Support us, and we'll support you. If you know of any person, court, law firm, legal department, technology, startup, anyone out there that's innovating that you think should be recognized, please come to the website, AmericanLegalTechnology.com, and let us know about them. The deadline is July 31st, and it's going to be a hard deadline this year, so please get in those nominations before then. And before you go, we'll be back in September with the State of the Industry panel, and that's usually really well attended. It's a lot of fun and interesting insights from some of the CEOs of major companies. So thank you all for attending. Signing off for now. See you in October and at hopefully the American Legal Technology Awards Gala. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, everyone.